All right, hello, fellow coders. Let's keep going with our little morning session that I have going on here. And my kids might wake up and they might start screaming, so we'll see how that goes. So with this one, I just in the background looked and compared where'd it go? This guy. I compared this response to an actual real response with real data, they're identical. So they look perfect. So this is exactly the style of the response that we get back from from the course report API, right? But obviously we have some dummy data in here, right? John Doe, Jane Smith, blah, 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 with fake email addresses and fake phone numbers. These aren't even, I just realized I'm looking at these phone numbers. These aren't even properly constructed phone numbers. There's no area code. So anyway, the actual content of the data doesn't matter. It's, again, the structure of the data that we care about. So cool. And and this could matter though, because it's coming in as a string, but we're gonna have to parse this as a real date. Because anyway, one thing at a time. So we'll go to the next step, which is let's start to create some of the code that will initiate a sample fetch, right? A sample get, I shouldn't say sample, an actual get request to our API's endpoint. Excuse me. So let's open up a new Java class, create a new Java class in the web controller. We'll call this the, what would we call this? This controller is going to be used to fetch the data from the course report API endpoint. We'll call this the API integration controller. Sure. Again, the names don't really matter. You could call them whatever you like. And this actually doesn't even have to be a controller. Now that I'm thinking about this could just be a piece of code that we execute. So this doesn't have to be a controller. Actually, I'm going to change this up. I'm not going to make a controller. I'm so used to just using controllers to initiate the start of something. So I'm going to hit delete on this. I hit the delete key on the API controller, and I'm going to delete it. And we're going to do something different. So let's create a new package. We'll call this a service. So the service package, service, is where we put, imagine this, all of our services. Let me pause while I do a quick cough here. There we go. Trying to save my video editor some time by pausing and cutting those parts out. So I created a service package, and this is where, services would go. So what is a service? A service is the actual, the unique logic, the unique behavior that your application has that you're putting into it that is different from any other application, right? So there's some code that's very similar. Like controllers are similar, right? Controllers, they get data from endpoints. They get, they post, they put, they delete. That's what controllers do, and all controllers look very similar. The services are where the behavior is different, where the code is different, where the algorithms are different, right? So this is where the unique stuff happens. And the unique stuff in this app is going to be how we interact with the API, right? So there can be a call to get stuff from the API, and then we have to parse the data that comes in from that API. Let's try this. In the service, let's create a service called, what would this be called? This is the fetching data from the endpoint and then parsing it, right? We're interacting with the course report API data and messing around with it. We'll just call this the course report service. It's very generic. I don't know if I love it, but we'll call it that for now. And we'll annotate it with @service so that our code knows that this is a Spring, component. And it will create an instance for it. Like when we boot up our application, it'll instantiate it for us and do all the stuff that Spring does, which is called inversion of control, IOC. If you want to learn about IOC, inversion of control. Yes, that's what this is all about, components and everything. Okay, so basically we want this to kick off when the app boots up, and every 5 minutes or so it keeps going. So for the every 5 minutes or so, I'll deal with that next, but for now we'll just have this kick off when the thing boots up. So we'll have this be a public, I don't even know, void, because I don't think it's going to return anything. It's just going to do work. And this is going to be, you know, pull course report API, right? So that's sort of what it is. Polling it for changes. And for now, we'll just have it do a system.out.print line, which just prints something to the console, you know, polling course report API, and then maybe, I don't know, have a new date or something. Local date time dot now. So that'll print out the date and time. So, and then when but this isn't being called yet. This is just a stub that's, you know, there doing nothing. So in the boot up over here, this is where the app boots up. I'm going to do something that I would not recommend. This is not good code, what I'm about to do. I'm just going to instantiate the course report service, which right there and then, you should be instantiating services. Spring should do that for you. So, and really I should be, anyway, this is just temporary to show you that I'm able to call the code for now. So we'll create the new course report service. Service equals, and then service dot pull. So that's the method that we just created, right? So now when I boot up the server, we should hopefully see that it hits that and puts a system out on the console somewhere. Oh, does it not? Okay. What am I missing? Let me hit stop and let me run this in debug mode because I put a breakpoint here. I just want to see if it goes in there. Yeah, it does. Okay. So it executes that. So go to the next step over, and then it goes into poll. Okay, so that functions. Oh, there it is. I just missed it. Okay, it blended in with all the rest of the stuff. So yeah, it was above the. I'm so used to looking at the Spring ASCII art and not going above, but it was literally right here above. So yeah, it's going in there and polling the course report API, you know, on the date and time. Cool. So that's working. So with this polling, this allows us to do stuff, right? This allows us to now start the process of interacting with our code. So what I want to do is send a request to the mock API controller, right? I just want to request, send a request to this endpoint and get data back, and that's it. And then we can move on to the next lesson. And how we do this is using something called REST template. Now there's a bunch of different clients. These are called clients for interacting with the web. There's a bunch of different ones. REST template is provided by Spring, but there's other ones called like OK HTTP, or there's tons. So you can you can use whichever one you're comfortable with. You know, I've used REST template all the time because it's built into Spring, so why not? So I'll call it RT, and what you can do is you can say RT dot, and you can say get for something, right? So we can say get for entity, and see, it returns a response entity. So that's why I made it response entity, why I made the return a response entity over here. No, the mock API controller returns a response entity. So that plays well with the REST template, right? We can get for entity, we can get that entity. So how do we do this? Oh shoot, how do I? There we go. So for those of you wondering what I did there, I put my cursor before the brown brackets and I hit Control Space. It might be different on the Mac, but that allows me to see what it's expecting. So the first thing it's expecting is a URL. So the URL is just mock API, right? That's the endpoint that we've created. Now this is not what we want to have. Again, this is not going to be the permanent code. We want to have this be sort of like maybe a variable or something. So for our local environment, it'll ping mock API, but for the production environment, the real environment, it'll ping the actual endpoint. So this will be a variable, but for now, we'll just hard code it. Next up, it wants a response type, which is a class. Yeah, we don't have a response type mapped out yet, so we'll just have it say string. And then any URI variables, no, It's just a plain old whatever. So if I were to pass in like with a get request, you can pass in like a question mark, something equals something else, right? You can pass in some parameters. That's if you wanted to do that, you could do that within this structure by putting in a comma and putting more stuff in. But we don't need to do that. That's not how our API call is structured. And then I want to assign this to a variable, and I'm not used to this. I'm used to Eclipse, which has different shortcut keys. So I want to introduce a variable, which is at least I think this is what I want to do. Control Alt V. So if I hit Control Alt V, and I call it. Okay, there we go. So that's what I want to do, right? I want to assign this to a variable. We'll call this the response. Right, so basically what that did was it generated pretty much everything to the left of, what I've selected. It created the type that's being returned from get for entity. So I didn't have to think about it, right? It returned the type, and then I assigned a variable name to it. And then we can say, system out, and then we print line, and we can just put response, right? Just to print it out, just to see did it work, yes or no. Let's play this out. And it did not work. So URI is not absolute. Oh, interesting. Okay, it needs an absolute URI, which is annoying but whatever. Localhost 8080 is annoying because this is not up and running yet. It's going to hit the endpoint, and it's not going to work because of the order I put this in first. So I need to run the app first, and then do this stuff. But I don't know if that's going to work. Let me hit play and see if this works. My methodology for teaching might be flawed. Is this going to wait? Oh, good, it does wait. Beautiful. Okay, so here you go. Here's the 200 response, and it returned this data, right? This is our data from our mock endpoint. So, beautiful. Our code is working. Let's move on to the next lesson.